you. I see people trickling in. So yeah, feel free to use that chat box at any time throughout the presentation.
And also extending good morning, good morning, good morning on this lovely day.
Oh, it's amazing.
We're all looking forward to being back at the park, but I have to say that now we're all gathering together virtually, and Oldways, you're guiding us through this wonderful series is just extraordinary. Wonderful team that had joined us for the two-part series that first started at the park, where a member of the, primarily the member of the city of Boston leadership shared their immigrant experience, and then all walked the labyrinth. And many, it was for the first time that they were introduced to the meditative aspects of walking a labyrinth. And then we walked to the kitchen, and at the kitchen, a chef shared a signature dish of the month that we were celebrating, the month that many of the residents of the city of Boston call their home of origin. So Oldways, we thank you for helping us continue this celebrating life and celebrating what unites us. Good morning, everybody. Andy, it's so nice to see everybody joining us and extending their warmest wishes too.
It's been a wonderful series, actually coming up on 2 years. We started in end of June 2018. So this is a 2-year series, and this is the third in a series of webinars that we've been able to do with Oldways. So we're very, very grateful for the partnership of Oldways. Celebrating What Unites Us is a partnership of the Armenian Heritage Park, the Age Strong Commission, the Age Friendly Boston Initiative, of which I'm the director, and my name is Andrea Burns. And I just want to welcome everyone here this morning on this absolutely beautiful, beautiful day to continue this incredible series that we have had a lot of fun with, and hopefully has brought a lot of joy to the people of the residents of Boston. So as everyone knows, I like to tie in the immigrant, some data about the particular immigrant population that we're highlighting. And Christina Kim from the Boston Planning and Development Agency was able to put together a little data sheet. And I just wanted to go over a few different data points on Asian immigrants and the significance of this immigrant demographic to the city of Boston. And thank you to Christina Kim from the BPDA who put this together for us. So I'm very grateful to her for getting this in the last couple of days. So thank you, Christina. So we have 45,979 Asian immigrants in the city of Boston. And this is a population that has increased over 43% since 2000. A significant increase. 38 years old is the median age, 54% are female, 42% speak English very well. And the majority of immigrants are from China, 22,725, and then Vietnam at 9,603, India, 5,643, and then Korea and Japan. So just wanted to share some of that information. I have this data sheet and I will be sending this out. It also shows, it's like a little hotspot, and it shows you the map of the city and the neighborhoods, and it shows you where the majority of people of Asian descent live in the city. There are obviously a lot of Chinatown, Alston, Brighton, Mission Hill, Dorchester for the Vietnamese population, but I'll show you this, and it's really interesting to see where everybody lives. So I just wanted to share that and kick this off back to Kelly from Oldways. And thank you so much. Let's have a wonderful class, and it's great to be here with everyone this morning.
And we thank you, Andrea, very, very much.
You got it. My pleasure.
Thank you so much, Andrea and Barbara, for having me here today. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Apparently some cannot, but if everyone can now, that would be great.
So it's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Kelly Toops, and I'm the Director of Nutrition at Oldways. Oldways is a nonprofit nutrition education organization, and we've been around for about 30 years now. We're here in Boston in Back Bay, and our mission is really to inspire people to embrace the healthy and sustainable joys of the old ways of eating. So today we're going to make some Asian heritage recipes. And can everyone see me on screen? Yes, okay, perfect. All right, so today we're going to make 3 Asian heritage recipes. And I'm really excited to be talking about the cuisines of Asia today. If you can see back here, we have the Asian Heritage Diet Pyramid, which was developed by Oldways. And there are so many delicious foods and flavors from throughout Asia. Almost half of the world's population lives in Asia. So there's really a diverse culinary scene happening, you know, lots of different flavors, lots of different ingredients. And despite all that diversity, there are definitely some key elements that are similar from one place to the next. Think lots of vegetables are used, lots of spices, noodles and rice, soy foods, things like that. So today we're going to make a recipe from northern India, a recipe from Vietnam, and a recipe from China. And I'm a dietitian, and so you know, really going to be looking at these healthy recipes and giving you some tips for your home. And you know, in Asia there are a lot of traditional healthy dietary patterns, especially when people keep towards a more traditional diet as opposed to a more Western diet with lots of fast food and soda. A lot of the historic food traditions really are rooted in those foods that are good for us. So foods like leafy greens, seafood, colorful fruits, spices, and then additionally, you know, movement was a part of daily life. So things like walking, yoga, bicycling, dancing. So without further ado, let's get started. Hold this towards the stove there. So the first recipe we're going to be making is a North Indian dal fry. And so we're going to take, and I believe the recipe should have been emailed to you. And if not, I think Hannah shared a link in the chat box up there. But basically, the first step we're going to do is in a large pot. We're going to use, it calls for either moong dal or mung dal or red lentils. And red lentils are what were available near me. And as you can see there, you know, it's a pretty small legume. So we're going to add that, 1 cup. And 4 cups of water. Get the stove going. And then the spices we're using are cinnamon, salt, turmeric, and cumin. And whenever I'm making a recipe with a lot of spices, I like to measure them out beforehand. And if you're adding them at the same time, I just add them to a little bowl together so that when it's time, you can simply dump them in. And that turmeric is the really vibrant, bright yellow one. And we're going to let this bring to a boil for a minute there. And the great thing about this dal dish, which is like essentially like a lentil stew, is that lentils or the mung dal or whatever legume you use is a great source of plant-based protein. So this is definitely an entree dish that is really healthy. And some of you may have noticed that, you know, it's harder to find meat at the grocery store, or some supermarkets are limiting the amount of meat you can buy. But making a dish like this, which happens to be plant-based, is a great way to get that protein in your meal, and it's really delicious as well. So we're going to let that come to a boil here. And then the next dish that we're going to start making while that's cooking are some Vietnamese spring rolls. So really, it's great because you can fill them with anything. In the recipe, we call for lettuce, bean sprouts, dried rice noodles, tomatoes, pineapple or kiwi, and then herbs, so like cilantro, mint, basil. But whatever you have on hand pretty much can be rolled up. Shrimp is really good if you enjoy shrimp, as far as whatever vegetables are in season. And I did want to remind you guys too that if you have any questions throughout this presentation, please use the chat feature so you can type in questions. They can be sent to the whole audience, to all attendees, or they can just be sent to the panelists. So either way, I'll try to get to those throughout our time together today. And if not right away, we'll definitely have some time at the end. So to prepare, I'm gonna fill a bowl with warm water. Vietnamese cuisine is really interesting and really special because, so much of it takes place at the table. Let me just make sure my Ethernet cord doesn't come out. Okay, that should do the trick. So a lot of Vietnamese preparation takes place at the table. One moment here. Okay, that should do it. I don't want to lose the internet and lose you. So we have our bowl of warm water. And then you're going to take one of these rice paper wrappers, and they seem pretty stiff, but when you place them in the warm water, they soften and become more pliable. So by softening them, it'll make it easier to fold them up. Then you can really layer them however you like. So I just kind of set it on the cutting board here. And I'm gonna take a piece of lettuce and place it in the center. Maybe take some pineapple. Tomato. And some fresh basil. And I wish you could smell this. It smells so good right now. And, you know, there's no necessarily right or wrong way to fold it. But let's see. I like to do one side in and then the opposite side in and then close up the side. So I'll demonstrate another one so you can kind of see that. But you can see the wrapper has softened a lot, which makes it easier to fold. And whichever of these you don't eat at the meal, you know, you can store them in a covered container in the fridge. Obviously, if it's something like has shrimp in it, then you might want to be a little more careful. Get a towel. Is that sweet basil or spicy basil? Someone asks. So I just have sweet basil, but really any kind of fresh herb is great. Can you discuss how to roll up the rice paper? Mine just sticks to itself. I'll try and get a little bit closer here and hold it up. Thank you to everyone who's typing in your questions. Let's see, we can do a little more. So if the rice paper is really sticking to itself, then it might be too wet. So it's good not to submerge it for too long. Like you just want to dip it into the water for a second. So I'm going to take the left side and fold it in. And then I'm going to take the right side and fold it in. And then I'm going to fold in the bottom and fold in the top. And it's pretty sealed there. It's not super neat, but it's pretty sealed shut. And I think part of the thing that helps is that these are pretty big, you know, see, it's bigger than my head. So if you're using a smaller type of rice paper, then perhaps it might be a little more difficult to maneuver. What brand of rice paper are you using? I'm not sure what the brand is. I don't remember. And I was able to find this, just these rice papers, just at Star Market. I didn't have to go to a specialty grocery store. I just went to Star Market. And so, see, when I'm taking it out, it still feels pretty not flimsy. It still feels pretty tough, but as it kind of sits on the cutting board while I'm cutting the other ingredients, it continues to soften. So I would say take it out of the water before it's ready. But yeah, I got these at Star Market in the aisle that has like the soy sauce in it. You know how some grocery stores have an aisle with like different Asian specialty ingredients? That's where I found it. And that's where you can also find like the dried rice noodles we called for. Unfortunately, the store I went to was sold out, but I could see where they were supposed to be, and it was right by this rice paper too. And so, and then again, you know, whatever kind of herbs or fresh vegetables you have on hand. I do really enjoy the sweetness of the fruits in it. Mango would be delicious too. And you'll notice that as I'm doing this, I'm putting the lettuce down first because it kind of acts as like an extra barrier. So just in case the rice paper tore, the lettuce almost acts as like an inner wrap. And oops, my rice paper kind of folded on itself too. But the lettuce is almost like extra protection. So that's why I'm putting that down first. And when I was mentioning earlier, when I was fiddling with the cord, this is a dish that's inspired by Vietnamese cuisine. And they do a lot of their meal preparation at the table, which is kind of cool. So, you know, people can, you know, wrap their rolls to their liking, and as opposed to having everything completely finished in the kitchen and then brought out. I'll just finish this one up and then I'll show you a few more things. And, you know, if you just have, you know, a tiny bit, you know, half of a bell pepper left over, or, you know, a little bit of salad greens left, this is a great way, oops, we have a hole there, a great way to make use of leftover foods and turn it into something hearty. So I'll leave that there and let me move these out of the way here. So the next thing we're going to make are 2 dipping sauces to go with these rice paper rolls. They're good on their own, but a sauce is always more fun. So these will be really nice. So the first sauce that we're going to be making is another kind of Vietnamese inspired sauce, and that is the Nuoc Cham. And so this is kind of the classic dipping sauce that you might see to accompany these spring rolls. And everyone kind of makes it a little different, you know, some like it a little more sweet, some like it a little more zesty. So you can certainly, you know, adjust to your preferences, but this is just a good starting recipe, you know, if you've never tried it before. So here we go. So this recipe, it calls for 1 clove of garlic, which I've already minced here. And the next thing it calls for, we need 6 tablespoons of fish sauce. Fish sauce can also be found typically in the same aisle as like the soy sauce and the rice paper and the coconut milk. So 6 tablespoons. which I've measured out. 2 tablespoons of sugar. I just used regular white table sugar. And it looks like the lentils are starting to boil, so I'll turn those down to a simmer. Give them a little stir. And 3 to 4 tablespoons freshly squeezed lime juice. One lime has about 2 to 3 tablespoons of juice in it. So for this recipe, it calls for 3 to 4 tablespoons of lime juice. That would be about 1 lime, sometimes 2. Yeah, it looks like this 1 lime has 2.5 tablespoons juice, so I'll just do a little more. Okay. Gonna add the lime juice. Then mix it together. You'll notice the recipe also calls for a bird chili, or you can substitute a serrano pepper. And unfortunately, I don't have one today, so this dipping sauce will be a little less spicy. But this is about, it's still a somewhat thin consistency. You can see here. And it's really great to dip the spring rolls in. So now I'll demonstrate the other sauce. Again, this one is more Vietnamese inspired, and the other one I'll make is a peanut sauce, so kind of a little bit of Thai flavors in that as well. Someone wrote in about the salt content, especially with sauces. So I always buy low sodium soy sauce. Most grocery stores have that. Even low sodium soy sauce will have a good amount of salt still, or a good amount of sodium still, but it is less than the regular soy sauce. Fish sauce, which we just used in the last recipe, also has a lot of sodium. So for this, it's just kind of a dipping sauce. So you're not getting, bowls and bowls of it. It's just kind of to lightly dip it in and get that flavor, but without necessarily needing to like dunk it. But that's a great question. And you'll notice in the stir fry recipe we're going to make in just a little bit here, we use a little bit of soy sauce and we add it at the end. So that helps as well. to just use a tiny amount, and at the end when it kind of sticks to your tongue. And oh, can you substitute the fish sauce? Fish sauce has a pretty distinct taste for those of you who are familiar with it. You can play around with different substitutions. It won't taste quite the same if you use, say, soy sauce or something like that. But you could certainly give it a try because of that umami flavor. So for the peanut sauce, we're going to use 1 tablespoon minced fresh ginger and 1 garlic clove, which I have ready to go here. And we're going to put that in a bowl with a 1/3 cup peanut butter. I love cooking with peanut butter. It's protein, healthy fats, and the flavor is just unparalleled. 2 tablespoons reduced sodium soy sauce, which I already measured out here. Is fish sauce fishy tasting? A little bit. It's hard to describe. I would say it's a little bit fishy tasting. It's definitely very savory and almost like savory, salty. Let me give these ingredients a stir over here. All right, so we added the soy sauce, 1 tablespoon fresh lime juice, and if you don't have fresh limes, I know a lot of stores sell bottled juice, and that's totally fine. Especially these days when people are going to the grocery store a little less often than they might typically go. I see there's a question about the shelf life of ingredients. For the fish sauce and the soy sauce, those are bottled, and you can typically get several months out of them. Just be sure to pay attention to the label if they want you to refrigerate after opening or not. Okay, we have our lime juice that we're adding in. 1 teaspoon packed brown sugar, 1/4 teaspoon crushed red pepper flakes, and then 2 tablespoons water as needed, but I'm going to see. And as you can see, when you first add it together, it's not, it looks kind of separate, so we kind of have to give it a good mix here to make it more of a smoother consistency. And I used smooth peanut butter because that's what I had in the pantry. I think, you can use crunchy if you want. Use whatever you have on hand. All right, so I'm mixing this together and it's getting pretty thick, like it's still kind of a peanut butter consistency. So I think I am gonna add some of that water. Let me back up so you can maybe see what I'm doing. And with all of these things, these recipes are just a starting point. They're just a guide for you to taste and adjust whatever you wish. So if you want to make it a little more sweet, a little more salty, a little more sour, you know, definitely adjust and use your senses when you're cooking. You know, don't just follow the recipe, reading it, but also use your sense of taste, of smell, and make sure that it's something that you enjoy. All right, so that is looking much better. And so there you go. This is a peanut dipping sauce. And both of these dipping sauces are great with those spring rolls. I do love the rolls with the fruit in them. And you can store those in the fridge in a covered container if you're not going to get to them at this meal. So let me put these things away, and then we'll return to our other two recipes. And I know, back to the question about the sodium, I know we have a great handout on the Oldways website about sodium in traditional Asian diets and, you know, healthy ways to get that salty flavor. So maybe later in this program, one of my colleagues can add a link to that as well. All right, so the next recipe we're going to be making is a stir fry. I'm going to use a wok, but if you don't have a wok, no big deal. Any stainless steel pot will do, or even a cast iron. And I'm putting the heat up on high here. Because the key to cooking with a wok, to Chinese cooking, is these high heats. Oh, thank you. Yes, I see that Hannah just shared the handout. So definitely check that out if you're curious. So gonna give this a minute to get hot. So the first thing we're gonna do is, I have celery and bell pepper, and I actually use half of what it calls for because I'm only cooking for 2 people for lunch today. But we're gonna put it in a pot of boiling water. Let's see. And just for 30 seconds. And I have a bowl of ice water nearby. So when these cook for just like 20 more seconds, then we're gonna put them in ice water to stop the cooking process. So we just wanna get them like barely boiled before they get added to the wok. Because again, Chinese cooking is very quick, very high heat. All right, here we go. Take this off heat. Right, let's see, getting pretty hot, pretty hot. Actually, as you can see, I don't have a vent hood over my stove. Oh, could you microwave instead of boiling ice water? I'm sure you could. Microwave kind of steams things rather than boiling them. So I wouldn't be able to tell you like the amount of time that it would take to microwave them. So you could give it a try. I'm just afraid that they might get like overcooked. But yeah, I put them in boiling water for 30 seconds, put them in, drain them, then put them in the ice water. I don't have a vent hood over my stove, and because Chinese cooking on the wok is very high heat, it can get a little smoky. So I actually have a fan set up behind the screen here, pointing up at my smoke detector. So, you know, make do with the kitchen setup you have. We don't have these particular recipes in Spanish, but we do have some recipes in Spanish, but unfortunately not the 3 I'll be making today. So I can definitely feel this heating up. So the next thing we're going to do here is add the oil. And I'm using canola oil because it has a neutral taste, can be cooked at a high heat. And then immediately I'm going to add the ginger, which I've already kind of cut up here. You can tell it's getting pretty hot. I have my AirPods in, so you can't really hear the sound from the stove. Again, I'm using canola oil because it has a neutral flavor. It can be cooked to a high heat. And it has a very low level of saturated fats compared with other oils. Okay, now I'm gonna add the shrimp. And I actually had frozen shrimp, which I then thawed. And this was frozen, uncooked shrimp, but it was already peeled and deveined, which was nice. And so, you know, they're just kind of in a single layer in this wok, as you can see. And we're just gonna cook them until they kind of start to get a little pink. You'll know when shrimp is done cooking, when it starts to get pink on the outside and when it's opaque. So right now it's kind of like clear looking, but when it's like white and not see-through anymore, is when you'll know it's ready. And we also have a great handout that perhaps Hannah can share a link to about different cooking oils in the Asian diet. There's, you know, people there use vegetable oil, peanut oil, all kinds of different oils. But something like a canola oil or something like that, you know, is great for this purpose because of the heat. When we're cooking Mediterranean dishes, you know, we love olive oil because those we do over more of a medium low as opposed to a medium high heat. And I'm gonna stir these around here so they can continue to get heated up. They started frozen. They were pretty thawed when we started today, but not completely thawed. So it might take a little bit longer than expected. And while we have this going right here, so for the dal fry, if you can see, so the lentils and the water that we put in the pot with the spices, that has thickened up really nicely. Hard to see with the steam. And this dal, you know, you could eat it just how it is right now. You know, don't have to take any other extra steps. But what we're going to show you is a North Indian technique where they take this dal and then they put it onto essentially like a fried onion and tomato mixture. Gonna use a stir, trying to get them pink all over. So I'm just gonna chop up these tomatoes real quick for the dal fry. And I saw Hannah shared that cooking oil handout, so thank you so much. I encourage you to, explore our website for all the different handouts we have, recipes. We also have a great brochure about the Asian diet, which is really fun. Will we be able to email all the links on the website? I'm not sure if they'll get emailed out after or not. I'm not sure if that's set up. Shrimp are starting to look good. And it looks like we have like 15 minutes left on the hour, so should be plenty of time to finish this up and give Barbara a chance to say some closing remarks when we're done here. Okay, so if you can see, the shrimp are starting to look pretty pink. So the next thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna add the scallions. I use the white and light green parts. The first version of the recipe that you got emailed, I forgot to include it in the ingredient list, but it's 2 scallions for all of it. And then we're gonna add the celery and red bell pepper. The cashew. I love how Chinese cuisine uses nuts in a lot of their entree dishes, where I feel like here in the US, a lot of people think of nuts as just a snack, but don't necessarily have them in their entrees. And so I'm giving this a good stir here. And the last thing we're gonna add to this is the soy sauce. So again, just adding it at the end. I have a low sodium kind that I'm using. And since we pre-boiled the celery and red bell pepper, it doesn't need a lot of time. We're just kind of stirring this all in. And then it's basically good to go. So you can see, this is what we're aiming for. How high is the flame? I had it on, so mine goes, it's low, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, high. And I had it on like a 6, like 5, 6. So not the highest, like you would boil water, but kind of almost like maybe a medium high. Difference between tamari and soy sauce. Yeah, you might have caught, I happen to have tamari in the fridge. It's gluten-free. So if that's important to you, you can use it, but you can really use tamari and soy sauce interchangeably in your recipes. So whatever you happen to have in your pantry, I find they taste pretty similar. And I have this because it was reduced sodium that was on sale at my grocery store. So that's why I picked that. How long did the veggies stay in ice water? Kind of as, what was that, 20 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago? Yeah, they've been hanging out there for that long. And that was just to kind of halt the cooking process. So now I have a pot that I've kind of been warming here, and I'm gonna put some oil in it. I think we called for canola oil in this recipe. But since we're doing like a medium heat, you know, you could really use whatever oil you want. I have onions and garlic, and so this is back to the dal fry. Get my recipe out here. Always good to have your recipe right nearby when you're cooking. Gosh, I've made a mess of these papers. Okie dokie. So yeah, if you're following along in the recipe on the dal fry, we're basically at step like kind of 2 right now. So the dal is nearly done, you know, it's thickened up a lot. And so now we're just cooking these onions. For about 2 minutes. And then when the onions cook down a tiny bit, then I'll add the tomatoes, and then you simply pour the cooked dal over it. And again, that's also like an entree dish, and you can serve it, traditionally you might have it with like a whole wheat flatbread. They're called like roti or paratha or chapati, roti or chapati, and it's almost like a whole wheat tortilla, like that kind of shape and size, and you can use that to scoop up the dal, or you could serve it over brown rice. I think a long grain brown rice is really good for this particular kind of recipe. So like a brown basmati rice or brown jasmine rice, or just long grain brown rice. So, you know, each of these recipes that we made, they're so different, like the parts of the globe that they span, you know, the cuisines are so unique, so flavorful. But in each of these, you know, vegetables played a really key role, and just goes to show, you know, there's a lot of healthy traditional diets. So I'm gonna add the tomatoes in here. And this, you know, again, a lot of times if you make dal, you can just do it more soupy without this last step. But if you want to give it a little something extra and do the dal fry, then that's great. So I'm going to turn the back off. And then I'm going to try to very carefully pour this in. And then I'm just going to stir it and let it all meld together for like 2 or 3 minutes. And that's basically it. So I can kind of show you what it looks like here. But those are our recipes. Let's see, it's kind of steamy, but basically, yeah, I'll have to work on this move. But it's really thick and hearty and delicious. So I think that's about all I have for you today. I'm happy to hand it over to Barbara if she wants to make some closing remarks.
Oh, here we are. Anyone have a question? Thank you so much. If there are no questions, please join me in a rousing applause. Kelly, thank you so very much. We all thank you. Very well done. We've spoken about it a bit about the park and a bit about this series in the beginning, so we can all look forward to seeing you next Friday, May 29th, when we celebrate the Latin American heritage with Paulo Garza. In the meantime, to age-friendly Boston, Andrea Burns, to the Oldways team under the extraordinary leadership of Sarah and each of you, our thanks from all of us at Armenian Heritage Park. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all. Hello, Andrea. I think we're ready. Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing everybody next Friday. In the back of me, everybody, that's the park, in case you haven't joined us, on the Greenway between Fennel Home Marketplace and the North End Parks. And we look forward to welcoming you all there, as you, Kelly, have welcomed us into your kitchen and made it look so effortless. And, so thank you. Andrea, thank you. Any comment to share?
Thanks for the wonderful class, Sarah. Kelly, that was amazing. Yeah, I want to make all those things.
Yeah, we all do. Thank you, everybody.
All right. See you next Friday.
See you next Friday.
Bye.
Enjoy the weekend.